Why is MGTOW growing in popularity? Answer from Aleximov, freelancer. MGTOW is the result of severe disillusionment of young men. Boys in last 30 to 40 years were raised with the following words: be nice to girls, be a good person, respect women, protect them, don't overstep your boundaries, remain healthy, and one day, you'll be in a relationship. The problem is that despite doing all that, many young men end up very unsuccessful with the opposite sex. Most young men fail to get a girlfriend for long stretches of time, many stay virgins way past what society tells is normal, and even after improving themselves by quite a lot, they still fail at being attractive. They think, wait a minute, I did everything right. I'm a nice guy, I respected women, I never overstepped my boundaries, I went to the gym 5 times a week, and I have a university degree. Why do I still fail to get any attention from women? And then they see pictures like the one above. They see that, in reality, your physical appearance matters, and almost no amount of treating women nicely will increase your attractiveness. In fact, nice guy is now an insult. They also see how almost all girls complain how their ex-boyfriend was this complete bore, this controlling, cheating, rude, mean person that maybe even abused them physically, maybe even sexually. The men prone to MGTOW think, so, wait, I'm a fairly decent guy, I don't abuse or disrespect women, I would never cheat or hit a girl, yet girls don't want me but sleep with the guy that beats and cheats on them? This realization can hurt quite a lot, and men usually blame the people that created that illusion and the women that rejected them. When that happens, things can become very extreme. It all becomes this grand conspiracy to keep decent men down while women go around screwing chads, as MGTOW often calls the type of sexually attractive boors described earlier. There are other big problems, like huge divorce rates that favor women, the fact these unattractive men are so often disrespected, mocked, and sacrificed by society. Similarly to feminism, the people who were dealt a bad hand in this arrangement are going to be angry, probably justifiably so. Many of these men probably see other issues. Divorce rates are quite high in today's world, which means many of the men who make up MGTOW have to have been children of divorce. They probably saw their fathers broken. They certainly knew men that were robbed, humiliated, and left alone after a nasty divorce that was just no fault. Meaning these men did nothing wrong, yet were chewed up and spat out. And in 70% of the cases, it's the wife that initiates the divorce. MGTOWs themselves probably felt loneliness, depression, and sadness in the face of society's total indifference and even outright mockery to their suffering. Maybe they had suicidal thoughts and saw that about 80% of self-killings are carried out by men, despite the media mostly portraying beautiful women killing themselves. 13 Reason Why wouldn't have been so popular if the main theme was a pimply male nerd suicide. All of that bottles up and leads to anger. And the only people addressing these issues right now are MGTOW. Donald Trump isn't talking about it, even though many of the MGTOW men supported him in 2016. In fact, he's talking about advancing women way more. And I'm not even going to talk about the way the feminist left-wing portrays MGTOW, but the usual theme is to compare them to school shooters, pimply nerds, and losers. So, why is MGTOW growing? Because all of these problems are only getting worse and worse. Anyone that addresses them is labeled a misogynist, a Nazi, a right-winger, a loser, and so on. And sooner or later, when you're shoving men into the societal underground, they'll form their own little clubhouse and they'll say f*** off to everything you ask of them. The whole name means men going their own way. That's MGTOW in a nutshell, men telling society to f*** off. Personally, I think that without a society the individual is nothing. But without individuals, Society is also nothing. I can sympathize with a lot of the talking points MGTOW raises, and I think more people should consider them. We need to start addressing these issues. Answer from Rhiannon Pierce. This thread has been incredibly interesting. Answering this as a woman, for a different perspective. Most women in the 20 to 40 year age range offer their male peers or suitors nothing. I'm in my mid-30s and we ladies in this age range really are a chip off our second wave feminist boomer mothers in all the worst ways. And most do precious little to correct the bad habits we learned from them. Many women I know have a rather inflated view of themselves. They are not anything particularly special, very average, which is fine. But the ultimate irony is that they would never date a man in their very same situation. And none seem to stop and look at themselves and ask themselves, what do I offer a man? There's this sad attitude, that is pretty much straight out of feminism, that if we do everything that men do that we're equal. But the problem is that men can do all those things for themselves already. Most men don't need or want another pure breadwinner, and that's all that so many women are, career-driven money makers. So, once again, what do my female friends actually offer men interested in a long-term relationship? Personality only goes so far. So while my friends are funny and lovely in many ways, being funny alone doesn't really keep a marriage together or make a home. They can't cook, and it's actually a source of sardonic pride that most do little to change. Hey, if they lived off takeout and frozen meals for 35 years so far, their husbands-to-be can live off it for 35 years to come. Or cook for themselves and not be man babies. Look at so many of the responses one woman got for innocently asking for sandwich suggestions to make her husband. I am a stay-at-home mother and I'm not my husband's mother. I was married for 20 years and my favorite packed lunch for my husband was called a get it yourself with a side order of I'm not your mother. My husband can make his own lunch. Our advice is to stop making his lunches. This let him do it himself. Attitude is sadly not rare among most women for just about everything. Everything they themselves did as single people, their boyfriend should continue to do for himself, because in so many women's minds an adult is an adult is an adult. Adults do chores for themselves regardless of their relationship status, whereas it seems most men are looking for more help with a lot of those tasks when they date. Or at least it would be intensely appreciated. So I really can't fault more and more men going their own way. Women have pretty much ruined each other for several generations by taking some sort of pride in being the least helpful one in any relationship. So many want to live essentially like roommates with a man, where you have only the barest sort of duty to your roommate in terms of chores, but generally just live together and both are expected to look after themselves, buy and make their own meals, tidy up their own messes, etc. If men wanted to live with a roommate purely to save money, they would. Most are looking for a wife, and that is something totally different that most women today simply are unable to offer to men, and men are finally realizing this and not settling anymore. Answer from Norman Lowe. Because female sexual strategies, especially in younger women, have changed drastically. Young women in the West, in the mainstream, are very open about their intention to have sex with bad boys in their prime years, when women used to get married or at least be working hard to select a potential life partner to settle with before they hit their 30s. Young women are very open about how, after spending a decade or more with the kind of men mothers used to warn their daughters to steer well clear of, that they will find a beta provider male, the kind of man they rejected all through their 20s as boring, and the kind of men mothers used to encourage their daughters to find and keep while they still had their youth. This has had an impact on the kind of boring men who traditionally worked hard, didn't treat women like shit, and who invested into their own societies and communities. Many of these men are now finding the only way to even get dates is to become the bad boy ass, which they either do, Or they switch off and tune out in disgust because they have been raised with the lie that if they respect women, show restraint and stability and work hard, they will find respect from women, and love. The West also no longer honors good fathers. Married men are generally beneath contempt. When was the last time you saw a married man who works to provide for his family being shown in a respected and honored position on TV or in a movie? Most are shown as idiots who are barely tolerated by their wives and children. Basically, the average 18-year-old Western man doesn't have the same incentives to knock himself out learning a profession and being stable and boring as previous generations of men in the West. The average 18-year-old in the West sees that for the next decade or so, his most effective sexual strategy is to focus on being the wild, sexy bad boy young women openly demand to dedicate their sexual prime to, rather than patiently preparing themselves to be the boring, loyal chap who will pick up the tab for a young lady who will be extremely selective about even going on a date with a man, let alone sleeping with one. Men who don't want to spend their 20s and 30s, the time when men used to hone their skills and grow their standing in their work and community, being promiscuous bad boys for women who essentially give them turns before moving on to the next beast, are tuning out and going their own way. MGTOW is a sad symptom of a culture selecting against itself. A dying culture hooked on cheap lays,